Whether you know Jim McMaster as the water polo coach who won dozens of state championships, the CPRD parks supervisor who successfully implemented multiple parks and projects around town, or an active Rotarian, Jim McMaster is a beloved and well-known figure in our community. So in this episode, Jim's going to share what led to his success in water polo, his role in transforming the cultural center from the old school, as well as his work on Friends Park, Newberg Skate Park, and many more projects. And you're also going to hear about his work through Rotary and his hopes for the Newberg-Dundee Bypass Trail. So we're covering quite a bit in this episode. I personally learned a lot, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy this episode as well. Hi, I'm Daniel Roberts, host of the Giving Town podcast, where we share stories of hope and generosity in Newberg and the surrounding areas. I'm also a local realtor in Newberg, a Rotarian, ambassador for a Chamber of Commerce, and a member of several local community organizations. So if you're a community leader, a nonprofit volunteer or employee, service club member, or just someone who cares about this community, then this podcast is really made just for you. We live in an amazing community full of incredible people who are working so hard to make Newberg an even better place to live. And that's what this podcast is all about. I also have the Living in Newberg YouTube channel, which is more about what it's like to live in Newberg. So if you like these podcasts, you'll probably enjoy that channel as well. And we're also a local real estate team, so we can help people move here, relocate, sell, buy, whatever it is that you're wanting to do that relates to real estate. All right, well, like I said, we've got a lot to cover in this episode, so I hope you enjoy episode 46 of the Giving Town podcast with Jim McMaster. All right, Jim, well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me. It's been, gosh, when did I first talk to you? It was before I did it with Don Clements. It was like years ago.
Right, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I think. But Daniel, I appreciate being there.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot of a wealth of knowledge around the Newberg area. So I'm excited to hear what's on your mind and some stories to tell. One thing I do want to do before we really get into it is just say a quick thank you to Shehelan Property Management for sponsoring this episode. And basically what will happen with that is that'll allow me to take those sponsorship dollars and boost this out to the rest of our community. So it's a way to really promote the podcast. So thank you, Jeff, for sponsoring this podcast and your team. Really appreciate it. All right. So Jim, getting right into it. A lot of people who are in Newberg know about you. They've heard the name Jim McMaster, probably for more than one reason. They know your role as the water polo coach and with CPRD. But what was it like growing up in your household, like the little McMaster, a mini McMaster? Which probably you don't appreciate that, but
I grew up in Los Angeles.
Okay,
I'm one of those California transplants. Even though I came here in 1980, so I've been here over 40 years. But and my interests were in outdoor things, whether it be hiking or biking or taking my skateboard out back in the day. But I got into water sports. In fact, I was kind of around the water. My grandfather was the first lifeguard in California.
The first lifeguard?
Yeah, lifeguard. I started the lifeguard service in what's called LA City. I grew up near the beach, so I was back and forth with the beach. So I was kind of near water, and then I got into water polo because it was by chance. I was always kind of a pool rat at the local pool, and I got into water polo because it was 90 degrees out. I could go out for track, or I could go out for this thing called water polo. So in high school I did. And so I just kind of kept it on as a sport, and then through college and so on and so forth. I enjoyed it. It was a good physical sport. It wasn't real hard on the body per se. And I just loved it. So, but between that and hiking and so on, I was active in scouting. And for a while I worked in Sequoia National Park as a guide, when I was 17, 18 years old. And then just kept going north after that. I ended up going to community college in Santa Monica Community College. I was going to be a history major, but then I said, I don't want to be in the classroom all the time. I want to do varied things with the public, with people. So they have this thing called recreation. So I really was called leisure services. So I got into that. Then there was only one university and very few universities throughout the United States, but one university in California that had recreation administration. So I ended up going up to Chico State University and majoring in recreation administration, and did that. And then in small segments, I did a little stint in Washington with their state park system as an intern. Got my master's, and then I saw an opening in Newberg, Oregon. Didn't know where that was, but I said I want to keep going north. Wanted to get out of California.
Yeah. So you went up all the way to Washington, then came back down to...
Yeah. So when I was done with my internship was basically, it was environmental education. I said, well, I don't know what I want to do right now. Let me get my master's, because a lot of times it's hard to get into something without your master's. Went down there, but then I just didn't want to do all the philosophical hoorah with a master's degree. So I saw the opening in Newberg. It was an opening for an aquatics director, basically, or aquatic supervisor. I forgot the title, but to run the aquatic center here. Well, I had done that in summers where I ran some big pools in California.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could go up and do that. Let me check it out. I wanted to get out of here for a while and do something different. So I ended up Little Newberg back then.
Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, what was the population back in, is it 1980?
It was probably mid-teens, I would say. It wasn't, it wasn't really big. I always say that when McDonald's came to town, changes are going to happen. So by 1985, it came to town. I said, okay, now this town's going to grow. McDonald's doesn't come unless they see that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So how did you then go from being the aquatic supervisor to then coaching water polo and then also CPRD? I mean, I guess there was a connection, right, between the aquatic center and it was owned by CPRD.
Well, I came to the aquatic center for the employment. Plus, I like pools and working with kids and stuff like that. I had experience. But the reality is my major in college, in recreation administration, I took the track of parks management. So I wanted to get back into parks. I wanted to get back outside. So I was doing aquatics for about 10 years. I was doing the water polo thing. And the person that was in charge of parks, a guy named Babe Nicholas, great guy. Well, he was getting older and retired. And so I just moved into that position. And then I became the parks guy, which was good because I was getting bored just running a swimming pool, doing the aquatic stuff.
So maybe we'll come back to Babe Nicholas, but I always kind of wondered the park there. It's named, is it Nicholas or Nicklaus?
Nicholas. Okay. Babe Nicholas. In fact, he lives on the corner, kind of catty corners in the park. Yeah. Good go.
Because I know the park there is named, everyone calls it the pool park, but...
Right. We named it after him because he had done so much in Newberg. Okay. I mean, he started when the park district started. And so I kind of learned from him a little bit, but then I kind of morphed beyond that. So that's kind of how that worked out.
Okay. So were you doing CPRD work and being a water polo coach at the same time? Yeah.
So at water polo, I did for about 38 years. And because my schedule working for the park district was 24/7. And I get calls in the middle of the night, there's a broken pipe or toilets or whatever, or there's, whatever in the parks, I get called. And so I had to respond. So because of that, my hours were not 8 to 5. My hours were, again, 24/7. So I was able to fit the water polo in there. And I enjoyed that. I always tell people, Shale and Park and Recreation District work, park work was my employment. The water polo, even though it was a park district program, was kind of my hobby. And so that's kind of what it was like.
Okay. Now, you had quite a bit of success with water polo. What do you think led to that?
I'm really big into fundamentals. I've traveled all over the world doing water polo with the national teams. So I learned a lot from that. Through the age group polo, and you move to the national polo, and then they pick you up, and you're going to be, assistant coach at the Pan Am Games in Venezuela or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I learned a lot from that. So I was able to bring that back to the kids. But my main thing in high school versus college versus Olympic level is high school is fundamentals. And a lot of people want to do all these plays and all this stuff. Well, if you can't catch a ball, and you can't swim well, and you can't shoot well, then you're not going to be very successful in water polo. So I really, really pushed fundamentals. And I think that was a big reason for my success. And plus, Newberg got some great athletes. I can't take that away from the kids because there were some great kids with some great athletic ability. So I was really lucky that way.
Yeah. Well, and there's some element of luck with that. And I mean, how many national titles did you win?
I think I won state titles.
Oh, it was the state titles.
I think I won one national title. It's called Junior Olympics. I won one of those. And coming out of a little town called Newberg, and the name Chehalem. So you're going down to these places like Southern California or back east. What is Chehalem?
Yeah.
And so they were just really surprised that these kids that weren't tan at all could do what they did. But back to what you're saying, so I won 38 state titles.
Okay.
High school titles.
38 state titles.
Championships, right.
And you coached for 38 years, so you won every single.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I coached for almost 40 years because with COVID and stuff, that was kind of my last year, the first year of COVID.
Okay.
And that was a weird year of coaching.
Sure. So that was kind of what we were like, okay, I'm done with this.
Well, it wasn't because of that. It's because I wanted to be done. I wanted to retire, but I wanted to find the right people to do that. So I found 2 adults. They were able to take the team, and I trusted them, and they've done a great job. So I was really, really excited about that. So I didn't want to leave the kids hanging.
Yeah. But you can't blame luck on 38 years.
It's, and I always tell people, they ask me, well, why did you, what do you miss water polo? And I really don't miss it that much. Mm-hmm. What I miss is the kids that I coached, and they were just turned out to, most of them, amazing individuals, doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers, and seeing them succeed. So I tried to use my sport, the sport of water polo, to help them succeed, to help them learn teamwork and learn how hard work and learn dedication and all those types of things. So that's the water polo end of it.
Yeah. No, it was interesting when I was doing some research. I didn't realize that you'd had a day named after you for water polo. How did that come to?
A day?
Yeah, it was like the water polo day. I don't remember what the date was. It was like, but they actually named like, this is like considered now water polo day.
You know, in my old age, I don't remember that.
Okay.
But I don't remember a lot of those accolades. So it's like,
it's just up there with the other medals.
Well, you know, it's just like, it's a medal or it's a name or whatever. But again, I wanted to get back to the kids in the community and to the community. And that was my main excitement.
Okay.
Not to say that winning a state championship was not exciting. I don't want to go there, but just seeing the kids do well and helping out the community, that was awesome.
Yeah. So you started with CPRD as the parks supervisor. When did that role actually start?
I don't quote me on this, about 1987 I took over.
Okay.
And
but you had a lot of success there too. The parks became, you oversaw a lot of really interesting projects.
Yeah, it's we did a lot. You know, I probably built 10 parks in the community and was project manager for the cultural center, the senior center, greater ball fields. Pretty much most of the park system was built in the last 30 years when I came here and did that. And I'm a real project-oriented guy. I like to see projects begin, start, and end in a good way. And so that's kind of what I enjoy. I didn't, some people say, well, Jim, don't you want to be superintendent someday somewhere? And I said, not really, because that's more of a political thing. I really wanted to see things happen and take place. So that's kind of what we've done.
Well, and you did, and we appreciate it, because you look at other areas, not every town has a great park system like we do. And, sure, some people have their complaints if they're neighboring, they're blowing the leaves into my fence, whatever. But overall, I think CPRD has done an excellent job.
Well, let me talk about that.
Sure. Okay.
Because the one thing that people don't realize, a lot of people still think, hey, all the parks are run by the city of Newberg or the city of Dundee. I don't think that I would have come to this area if it wouldn't have been a park district. Because with the cities, especially small cities, parks are low-hanging fruit. They're the first ones to get cut. And I get it. Mm-hmm. You have to have your infrastructure. You have to have your police. You have to have your fire departments. But recreation is kind of like way down there with libraries. They're not as important to running the city to a lot of people. But the people that lived here, it was important. And they decided they were going to get rid of their pool here because it was leaking more water than was put in. It was an outdoor pool. So they wanted to build a new pool. City didn't want to do that, is my understanding. So they created a park district. And so by doing that, now all we do is recreation. We don't have to worry about the police department, running out of money and asking for more or whoever. And that was important to me. So I don't think people realize here how well they have it. Because if you were to go to Tigard, or you were to go to Canby, or you were to go to some of these smaller towns, they don't have anything like this. So they may have the same population. They don't have a golf course. They don't have a cultural center. They don't have a nice aquatic center. They don't have, if this would have been a city park system, you would have probably had 10 less parks because that wouldn't have been a priority and they couldn't afford it. Yeah. So we're really lucky to have a park district, and some people don't understand that. And, Dundee came around, they kind of saw that. So Dundee has, 4 parks now? Or 3? Or they would have maybe 1.
Yeah.
So that's the difference, and that's why I like the park and rec district feeling.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because I see people complain all the time. They want both sides of they want their cake and they want to eat it, too. So, sure. There's, with the district, there's also fees that come with that.
Sure.
You're having to, you're sacrificing some things to gain other things.
Sure.
And that's just life. You can't.
Yeah, we try to keep our fees reasonable. Mm-hmm. And again, people, we don't, if you cannot afford it, then the park district, depending on what it is, will fund it for you. We don't, like, if the aquatic center, kids that want to come in swimming, they can't afford it, they will work it out somehow so they can use it. So that's been a mantra for our park district since I've been here. And hopefully,
And you're talking about for the activities themselves.
Right. Now, if you have a teacher or paying a teacher as a contractor or something, that's different.
I was talking about, because isn't there, when you apply for a building permit, isn't part of that fee set aside to go to Parks and Recreation?
Correct. Correct, SEC fees, system development fees. And people, I have a love-hate relationship with those.
Mostly hate.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a developer, I'd probably hate it because my house is going to cost more and so on. But the reality is, we have a big development that goes into town. People want this and that. The big development goes into town and, they only park. Well, the developer's not going to build the park. They're going to build everything around it. So they're going to, after the developer leaves, and I'm not saying all developers, but a lot of them, because they're there to make money, and I get that. Then they come to us and say, hey, park district, you should build a park for me. Well, instead of all the people in our district paying for that park over there, the people that built those new homes now are going to pay for that. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to pay for other things, throughout the district. A good example is, just to give you an example, is Friends Park, which is over by the airport, kind of over in that area. Friends Park was 9 acres. We bought it, 20 years ago. I don't even want to say the price. It was ridiculously low. But it was great for the community. It has sat there. No homes were built. It sat there. No homes were built. And then finally the homes came in. And so with that said, they come to us and say, well, park district, we want a park. We were told when we moved here that we would have a park. So it's 9 acres. And so we said, okay. So I applied for a grant. Okay. And then from the state parks. And then we took STC money and matched the grant because it had to be matching. We also had and then I talk about relationships. That's really important to me. We had a construction company that said, Jim, we'll grade this whole thing and do all this infrastructure pro bono.
Wow.
Because we want to get back to the community. So we had these 3 groups together. Part of it was STCs. And we built the park. If we didn't have those STCs, they would not have a park. Because we couldn't afford it. Because if we had to take money out of our general budget to build, then we would have to cut back on maintenance. Big time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it's at. It's hard for some people to realize it, but it's no different than the city. The city charges STCs, and they do that to help them put in infrastructure. And if they didn't have that money, they couldn't do the infrastructure. So it's the same with parks. And people really want parks.
Yeah.
They want their community to be livable.
Yeah. Now, just kind of from a parent and community standpoint, what is the process when there's a park that's kind of in disrepair? Like, it was built maybe 40 years ago or however long it might have been built. And, from some people, they might think that, oh, it needs to be rebuilt completely. So like, what is the process of going through that and evaluating? Like, do people submit requests in? Like, how do those?
Yeah, a lot of times it's requests. Our main thing is it's safe. That's the part that you guys has to make sure it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, there's a lifespan of certain things like a playground equipment.
Yeah.
I put playground equipment back in 1990 that now needs to be replaced. Mm-hmm. And so you just kind of, and not everything needs to be replaced now. And then the other thing I tell people, and we have some new board members and I'm trying to teach a little bit, there's different levels that you could be at with parks. You got, your gold standard and your entry standard in your middle of the road. And so do we want every park to look like the front of the aquatic center or the golf course? Well, we could, but then that costs a lot of money and a lot. So you kind of have to weigh those options.
Yeah.
I mean, like right now, I know the Parks District is repairing Jake with his nature repair. Does everything need to be replaced? No. Do things need to be brought up, updated? Yes. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a lot, and sometimes it takes people complaining. Sure.
Yeah.
It's like anything.
And is that like, does it come to the board for those things, or is that just like whoever the supervisor is?
The staff
is
responsible for providing a budget. They're also responsible for putting in that budget what needs to be done. Now, the board may look at it different ways than what the staff looked at it. No, we're getting a lot of complaints in this area. We need to do this right now. So it varies.
That makes sense. All right. I know we've got a lot of things to cover, but one of the things I did want to hear from you is in your time with CPRD and with all the projects you worked on, are there any interesting stories that kind of stand out that you're like, oh, I wish more people knew about this?
Yeah, the cultural center is a good one. So I was project manager on getting that done, and it took a long time, steps, and I'm excited because privately they raised like $6.5 million to finish the top, the second story, which is awesome. But when I went into the cultural center initially, it was given to us for $1 from the school district. Here, Park and Rec, because they had just built some new schools. The Central School, it was called, was not up to code, was not up to seismic code. It had a lot of problems. No ADA access was horrible. Schools need to get rid of it. So they said, as long as you keep it in the public purview, Park and Rec, here you go. So for $1, we inherited a $20 million project, in theory. And so when I went in there to begin with, they had just closed what's called Rennie School. And at Rennie School, they brought over all the desks, all the chalkboards, all the tables, all the chairs, everything you can imagine that was in that school was in the gym. By the way, Park and Rec, you need to get rid of this stuff too, because this is all part of your gift. And so, it was a great gift. And the school districts, I get it. They had other things they didn't want to deal with it, and I understood. So we had to clear all that out. And we gave, we did an auction, and we gave some of the nonprofits, some went to the dump. It just depended on what it was. So we cleared all that out, and then had to clear out asbestos and do all this stuff. But as I got into the building, because we had to tear all the walls down to the stud to bring up the seismic level for FEMA and so on, and get rid of all the asbestos and stuff. All of a sudden, we're going through the walls, and here I find some old beer cans in the walls. Back in 1934, there was no OSHA or any of that. So I'm taking out these beer cans and newspapers and stuff they shoved in there. I thought they probably had lunch. There was one part where the main building was built in 34, and then about 54, they built the two wings in the front and the gymnasium, which is now the ballroom, in the back. And there was a false wall there when they built that gymnasium. And as I was taking that wall down, here they have, because it used to be outside before they built the gymnasium, so kids would bounce the ball against the wall, whatever. Here's a basketball hoop that was bent down behind the wall. And so I go, this is so cool. And then, when they had a hoop back then, you have a solid board now. Their backboard was in slats.
Interesting.
Which is really cool. So I saved that upstairs, and it's still up there. It's bent down, and it's kind of a relic. So I thought it was kind of cool. So that was some of the stuff. There's other things that we found outside, underground. They were going, this is kind of iffy. I remember one story where we went in there, and when the school district had to do some abatement before we came on, it used to be heated by oil and it was steam driven. Anyway, all of a sudden, as we're doing excavation outside the building, I see these lines and they're leaking oil. And I go, is there an oil tank still here? And the school district adamantly, no. And it was freaking me out because that would have cost a lot of money. And it just so happened those oil lines just had a little oil in it, and we caught it, and that was it. The tank, it hadn't been taken. Okay. There was another story where there's a huge deodorant cedar in front of that building. Because a lot of people don't realize when they plant a tree that's 4 inches thick, can get to 5 feet thick. And so we have this tree, and I needed to get out of there because it was pushing the building. It was so close that it was pushing the building.
Oh, wow.
And some people were mad. I took it down. I said, well, if you want the building to fall over, let the tree live. And it was hurting anyway because huge branches were falling off it periodically, things like that. So we ended up following the tree. I'm not sure I did the right thing here legally, but we fell the tree. So it fell from basically the west part of the center all the way to the tip of the library. That's where the top end is. So I'm going, oh, gosh. So anyway, we ended up excavating out there. When we excavated, we found a bunch of old water lines, and they had tree roots that were just in the water line, 30, 40 feet that were straight as an arrow. So that was kind of interesting. So
that tree's like, wow, my lucky day. I found some good water.
Yeah, so that building had some really interesting problems. But, it's a great old building, kind of great for the community, and I'm excited to see it finished. So
yeah, what it sounds like progress is now, it was stalled for a while, but now it's
moving ahead, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. The other one I'd like to tell you about is when we were doing the skate park, Ewing Young Park was an old dump, part of it. It was abandoned back in the late 50s. In fact, back there, when I first came, there were people back there collecting the old bottles that were back in the hillside. And if you walk back there, you might be able to see glass and stuff on the side of the hill. Well, that's part of the old dump. So we inherited this dump site. It was a PGE pole yard. It was a brick yard, the top part of it for when they built Newberg. Had all these things going for it. And so at about, 2000, by year 2000, they wanted to build a skate park. That was the big thing, skate parks. And so these guys wanted to go out with a shovel and build a skate park. Well, you can't just take your buddies and go out there and build a skate park with a shovel. So the board of directors at that time directed me, Jim, you need to get a skate park built. And I knew nothing about skate parks. So I said, okay. So a friend of mine was a director at Seaside, and they just built a skate park. And so she said, well, call these guys and see what they can do. So I interviewed these guys to come build a skate park. And I don't think you would have hired them to look at them. This was just, wearing baggy clothes and unkept and just hanging out and stuff.
Were they like a consulting group?
There was just a bunch of guys that had built the skate park there, built the one under the Burnside Bridge in Portland. And I said, okay. And so I said, look, guys. So I found an architect out of Salem because Kaiser had just built a skate park. And I found another guy that's excavated, and I brought these two guys in, and we drove some plans, and the guy was an excavator for those plans. And then these guys were the ones that did the artwork, basically laid out all the transitions, did all the, concrete work because it had to be a certain smoothness and all that. And so they came out there and they started building the skate park. I hired them as part-time laborers for the summer. And some of them lived out of the park in tents. This was the group that we were doing, but they were basically loved skate park. They were so passionate. They did not want to make any mistakes. So we ended up painting one of the largest skate parks in Oregon the largest skate park in Oregon, one of the largest in the United States and the world at that time.
Wow.
And so that's like 30,000 square feet. It was the biggest skate park around. We had guys like, we have famous skaters like Tony Hawk and stuff come because it was the thing. And it was just a great deal. And I was surprised we were able to finish it. And we did. And it was like, $200,000 to do this job. A lot of it was in-kind donations. All the rebar was donated by Cascade Steel out of McMinnville. Concrete was donated at cost. And that's kind of my thing. I look for those relationships to help the taxpayer less. So now something like that would be probably close to $3 million to build that.
Wow.
So it was an amazing feat. And then next to it, we built the BMX track. And the way I figured that one out was I was flipping through a Park and Rec magazine, a national magazine. And they said, hey, BMX track BMX track, what am I looking for the word? Grants. So I applied for this grant. And all of a sudden I get this call, hey, we want to build this. We want to build for you over in Newberg. You've won the grant. So all of a sudden they build the first of many renditions of that BMX track. So that's how that got built. So a lot of it is just not just the park district building it. It's getting to know people that want to help you build it. And that's kind of been my mantra. Yeah, I still try to do that, get people to help. Yeah. People are glad to do that if they're asked in the right way because they want to get back to the community, just like you and I want to get back to our community. So, yeah, that was another story. Let me see another one. Yeah. Hoover Park is a good example. Hoover Park is a tough one for me because Hoover Park is a city park. And so is Memorial Park, so is Scott Levitt Park. But we leased them for like 50 to 100 years from the city because the city had them and we just took them over because that's what we do.
Gotcha. So there's some parks that are owned by CPRD, some parks that are owned by the city, but that CPRD manages? Is that?
We lease them and manage them, yeah, because that's what we do. And we want to do that because we do it better than the city would because they don't have people to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so with Hoover Park, we used to have a sewer district here. It wasn't part of the city. It was a private company that did sewer work. So a lot of those homes over by Hoover Park, instead of the sewer and the gray water going into the sewer, it went into the park.
Oh, geez.
So all of a sudden, I'm finding these sewer lines going down into the park that we have to find and we have to shut down. So I have all this water and people say, it's so wet. And well, that's because all that water is coming from somebody's dishwasher or whatever. It wasn't raw sewage at this time. Those have been taken care of. It was the gray water.
Okay.
So
still,
yeah, it wasn't black water or, sewage. So it's still kind of not great. So we got rid of all that. And then they had the old swimming pool up there. And back in the day, Oregon Park and Rec was looking for grants that could basically for sustainable use. Sustainable was a big word. And then they go green and they change, So it's sustainable. So I said, well, to get sustainable, we've got old pool shell here.
Now, I think briefly explain the pool because I think a lot of people don't know there's a pool.
Yeah, it was an outdoor pool. And that's exactly where the playground is at Hoover Park right now. That is built and the outdoor pool is part of it, underneath it. And part of our storage shed back there is where the pool was. Huh. And it was great, really a big thing to have the outdoor pool in the summer here. But I said, to be able to get this grant, let's go this route. And so I said, okay, Oregon Parks, we're using the pool and we're just making it sustainable. So we're not having to tear it out and pull it away. We're going to build a playground in the pool, fill up the playground with dirt, and then build on top of that dirt and gravel. And we did, and we got the grant. And then Rotary got a $50,000 grant, I think. And the Rotary came through and helped us with that too, along with SD seats, and we got it built. So that's kind of how those work. So it's kind of interesting how Hoover Park, and then we had a problem a little bit with folks down in Hoover Park that shouldn't have been down there. Somebody got the idea, hey, we need to bring in disc golf. So we built a disc golf course, and that was awesome. And so we have less trouble down there with folks down there that shouldn't be. They get a recreational opportunity because that's a tough part because of the way to get down to the park is very steep. So
disc golf. I don't think people would go down there without that.
What's that?
I don't think people would go down there if it weren't for disc golf.
Right. Except for sledding in the winter.
Yeah. So one of the other things I wanted to talk about was we're in the Noon Rotary Club together, and you recently spearheaded the project to get the wind sculpture up. So I wanted to get your thoughts on if maybe some people aren't aware of it. It's down by the Cultural Center. It's this giant sculpture. So how did that come about? And can you share about that project?
Well, yeah, I was in Stevenson, Washington, and saw it for the first time. And I kind of checked around Stevenson, Washington, and a bunch of community groups got together. I wanted to put this in to bring the community together. And so I said, well, at the time that this was happening, Newberg was having some political upheaval, which everybody knows about. And I said, I'm not into that. I'm not into them versus us or us versus them. It's not my thing. I said, I'm into just basically trying to make things better for the community. And so I said, if we build this, if we can get enough donors for this, because I didn't want to use money. I didn't want to use government money to build this. I wanted to build it with people that were going to donate to it. So the Early Bird Rotary Club and the New Rotary Club came together and funded it. And then 10 to 12 other people funded it to bring the community together in peace and cooperation and love and so on and so forth, to try to get us back together as a group. We all have the same interests, hopefully, to make the community better. And that's kind of why I did it. Was it fun for me? It took a lot of work to get that going. But you know what was awesome? And that's awesome about living here is people step up. They want to help. If it's a good cause, they want to help. And that's why I enjoy recreation and what I do.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that, because then during the unveiling was actually a 5K race in honor of Denise Bacon.
Right.
It was a Rotary Club member, city councilor, who just was an amazing person in this community.
She was.
And actually, as we're recording this, was just a few days ago, was the 1-year anniversary of her passing. And, that was a hard thing for everyone, because she really was one who stood up and said, let's work together. And our podcast episode we did together was actually called Remembering Who We Are.
Right.
That Newberg at its core is a very loving, compassionate, kind community. And I just really appreciate your perspective of it, just saying, hey, you know what? I don't want to be a part of the division. But instead of complaining about it, you went and did something, and you got people together. You leveraged the relationships that you have. And now we have this beautiful sculpture that can be a reminder of that. And people see it. It's a beautiful sculpture, especially when the wind blows during the winter, when everything else is brown and dark. There's beautiful colors. So I appreciate your efforts in that.
Yeah, I did a lot of the work on my own, but I had people supporting me. Other Rotarians and stuff supporting me. So it was kind of a group effort in a way. Mm-hmm. I just spearheaded it. So
yeah, well, and that's what things take: one person spearheading it and other people coming in.
Yeah, my adage with all these groups, it always takes the few to do the work of the many. It really does. You have a group wanting to do something. There's always just a few people that are pushing it, and other people got to watch. And so
the 80-20 rule is another way of.
There you go.
One of the other things is you've been really working on the Newberg-Dundee Bypass trail down on where the bypass is. Can you share about that and where things are with that right now?
So if you look at the cultural center, or you look at the aquatic center, or you look at the golf course, all those big things, they make this community more livable. They really do. People go, oh my gosh, you have all these amenities for my kids, me, my parents to do in this community. It's awesome. But the one thing that we don't have in this community that I'd like to see more is safe, walkable areas outside of walking down your street and having to go across driveways or having to walk off the edge of a sidewalk. And so the Newberg-Dundee Bypass Trail is a trail that would go basically from where the bypass starts of the 240 there all the way to Dundee and drop off at the new elementary school that's being built on the south side of Dundee. It would provide this community another amazing attribute for everyone in the community, young, old, and so on. Before I get to where it's at, two quick things. So I went to Dundee, and there was this boy and his mom and their dog, and they were outside, in the subdivision near where the bypass trail will be built. And I said, what do you think about this? Being able to walk all the way to Newberg and back, that would be the best thing. This little boy said, I could take my dog for a walk. I can do it safely. This is a little boy. And then I go over to a new subdivision that's being built I think that's where you live.
The river run.
I talked to some people over there, just at random. I don't know who they are. What do you think about this? Would be the best thing. Well, I think I know the majority of the public would like to have that. It's all built in a right-of-way that's ODOT's right-of-way, so there's no private property involved in where the lay of the trail would be. There's always people that are upset with things and make a big deal of things, but in reality, one day, soon, all of our city, the Dundee and Newberg city limits will either be up to the bypass or pass it to the river. So we're just getting ahead of the game. So we can build it now. Or our grandchildren can build it at a lot higher price. So with that said, working with ODOT, because ODOT wants to see it built too. Part of the thing is just not roads. Part of the things is, bike ped type transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first phase is what we're doing now. And we're in a stage where we have hired a contractor. We are still working with the designers. I think most of the environmental is done. And we're moving forward. We're doing some value engineering to try and see how we can cut some costs. ODOT allows us to put a little bit of lighting on there now too. So we're working on that. So the first one is a walkway and a bridge across Hess Creek, which is the creek that runs from Hoover all the way down. So it's going to be crossing Hess Creek.
Yeah, and Chehalem Creek.
It has to.
Yeah.
It can't go down because, you got to think about 88 too. And plus, if you're going to switch back all the way down and all the way back up, it's not going to be as usable. So ODOT, Department of Transportation, is putting in $1.8 million. So that's money that's going to be spent here in Newberg by the state, which otherwise, if we didn't take them up on that, Wilsonville will, Lake Oswego will, or somebody else will. So we are. And then another $800,000 in SCCs, and other money that we have is being put in by the district. To be able to build something that's going, in my view, as a recreation professional, looking at communities all over the United States, is going to make Newberg-Dundee more livable, where people will stay here instead of having to go to Tigard and do the Fano Trail over there and so on and so forth. Folks have got, with land issues and all that. Well, they're not here with us because it's always already in a right of way that's purchased by ODOT.
Yeah. So then are there roadblocks? Right.
Yeah, there's always roadblocks. There's always people that, have ideas. Well, it's going to impact this or impact that, or NIMBY's not in my backyard type stuff. There's always going to be that. But if people are really looking, I think, realistically at what's good for our communities, then they would see this as an attribute. You go to communities all over the United States and you see these being built because people want to get out and promote health and wellness. They want to get out and be able to take their child in a stroller for a safe walk instead of being blown over by a semi that goes by or, the exhaust of a used truck. Not to say we're going to try to stay away as far as we can from the bypass road and they'll be safe. But, they want to be able to know that they're safe and comfortable. You have little children. You take them out and walk in your street. You're always looking left and right. Is there something that's going to get my child?
Yeah.
That's important. And that's why so many communities now are building these. If you go to like Idaho, which is a very conservative state, they're building them everywhere because they understand how valuable that is for the community. I'm passionate about it. Will I use it myself? Probably not that much because it's going to be mainly the main part of town that's going to use this. And some people will come in because they want to show off Newberg. But it's going to be amazing if the community has the foresight to support it and keep supporting it and get her done. And if ODOT's paying all that money and you think that money's always going to be there, I'd jump on it. And we are.
So what are ways that the community can get involved and help make that happen?
I just think letters of support, talking to board members that are here now and emphasizing how important it is, for them. If it's not important, fine. And some people won't use it, I get it. But a large majority of people will use it. A large majority. People said that about the aquatic center. Oh, what do you need this and that? I'll bet you $5 their grandkids are using it. Or I'll bet you $5 that they've got a knee injury and they're not using it. So, you can be a naysayer and so on. But the reality is, I'm looking out for the entire community, not just a few people that collect that.
Yeah. And how long would that be, by the way, the whole trail once it's done?
A little over a mile. It's not really that far.
Okay.
From Newberg to Dundee. People, you go 99, it seems like it, but the back way is not that far. They're pretty close. The city limits are really close.
Interesting. Even crossing Hess Creek, coming all the way down, crossing Chehalem Creek, it's less than a mile.
Don't quote me on that. I'm sorry.
I'll do my own research.
Take a look. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But, it's no more than 2. But, and then basically you could come in from Dundee, go all the way along that trail, come off of the trail, and then there's more of a trail. And then you notice a huge sidewalk that's going down towards, what's the name of that street? Towards Fred Meyer. It's like twice as wide. And you're walking out of that. They built that for that reason.
Okay.
To make it safe. And you go all the way to Fred Meyer. So you can walk it or you can bike it.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
It'd be a great way to have a connection between biking from Dundee to Newberg too. That's not 99 or day.
And that's what it was. It's interesting because a lot of times, and then this is sad, and it's happened during Newberg too. You don't get a signal or a crosswalk in until someone's killed, and then they build it. And that's a disappointing thing. Like when the aquatic center, when they pushed the one back in the late 60s, the new one that was built before this next one was built.
Yeah.
Some kids drowned in the river. And they said, we need to have some lessons. We need to do this. It's a shame sometimes that happens. And I don't want it to happen here.
Yeah.
So I want people to have a safe place to walk.
Yeah.
And ride.
Well, one other thing, just as far as you've been in the community a long time, you've done a lot, you've had your hands in a lot of different projects. And maybe it's the trail, maybe it's something else, but what is one message you'd like to send out to the Newberg community?
I just think that folks need to embrace their community. They need to do more here. They need to find out what the city has to offer, what the park district has to offer, and what we can do for you, and stay here and shop here and enjoy the town you live in. I think, we're growing. I know that there's a new subdivision going in over on the other side of, I think it's where ADIC properties are over there.
Oh, the Colina?
Yeah, that area. I mean, people are going to come here and they want to be here because we offer these amenities. And we just need to make sure that we, quote, keep them up and people understand, what Park and Rec is doing for their community. And we want to keep doing that. And one of the reasons I ran for the board of directors, I took 2 years off. I ran for the board. And the reason I did that was, number one, I wanted to show people where the bodies were buried, things where things are, and some things you can do and can't do. But the other thing is, I just really enjoy being able to provide, fun, recreational, leisure services to the people that live here. I mean, that's always been my mantra. It's like, let's get this done. Let's go. And let's make this a livable, enjoyable, and just a well-rounded community.
Yeah. Well, last question. What is something that gives you hope for the future of Newberg?
I think what gives me hope, I think there's some opportunities here for the public to be able to create more opportunities here. And I hope that some of these naysayers realize that and want to get back. I really do. I'm pushing 70. I'm pushing 70. So my time is coming to an end in a way with my age, but there's so many young people that can, like you and your family, you need to step up and say, we want this. That age group needs to step up and say, we want this. We want this town to be livable. So you basically and your family give me hope that you'll do that and that you'll encourage the park district to grow and to help people understand how important leisure and recreation is in Newberg, not in Tigard, not in Lincoln City, but here.
Well, I appreciate that because that is something I'm passionate about as well, is helping people understand what a great town this is. There's the giving town side of it. There's also the living in Newberg side. That's my YouTube channel where I just talk about what it's like living in Newberg. But it sounds like I got some work to do with maybe encouraging people to get involved and talk to the park district. And even if I can't be involved myself right now.
Right. People take things for granted.
Yeah.
Never take anything for granted because it can go away so quick. So never take it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jim, so much for your time, for all that you've done in this community. It's great to share your story.
Thank you. This is awesome. I hope people enjoy it and realize, hey, I'm still here.
Well, stick around. We love having you here.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to the Giving Town podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think might benefit from hearing it. While more and more people are continuing to hear about this podcast, I still need your help to spread the message about all the people and organizations that make Newberg so great. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.